Okay, so we're back for another season of the best zombie-based TV show on television, The Walking Dead, Season 3. Now, at the end of Season 2, the farm had pretty become overrun, so everyone was on the road, and thus also they introduced Michonne. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. If not, by all means, comments correct me. And they mentioned that winter was coming. So I was thinking, awesome, zombies in winter. You know, I have seen movies where it's zombies in winter, and it's always very different. Because, you know, the humans are impacted by the amount of snow, and so are the zombies. Well, we begin, and winter's already passed. So, there's a baby really close to being on the way. And of course, the group is still somewhat, you know, transient, kind of going from house to house, gathering supplies. Then they stumble upon the prison. Now, in the comics, the prison was a pretty large portion. And in this one, you know, if you complain about not seeing enough zombies in Season 2, most of this episode is the killing of zombies, as they're slowly clearing out sections of the prison. So, you know, they get the main courtyard taken care of. I do like the section where they actually had to fight the zombies and the SWAT gear. I like that. That was good. You know, they found a way to get through it. You know, cut a pretty nice path through everybody. And then they end up finding, you know, cells. Yes, so they're currently going to sleep in cells to try to help themselves, you know, survive. Which makes sense, you know. If you're to think about it, during a zombie apocalypse, if you were to lock yourself inside a prison, you would have multiple gates that you can lock and lots of space that you actually could really easily use. At the same time, the zombies are going to walk up to the fence, you pretty easily just go, oh, tire iron, and gore, and gore, and gore, and gore. Which, if you read in the comics, they did that for quite some time. They at the point that they put a knife on a board, so you can put the board into the gate and kill the zombie, and then pull the knife right out. So a lot of time is spent, of course, clearing out some of the different areas. You know, they do a little bit with Michonne. I'm waiting to see a lot more. You know, she's and of course they've mentioned about how, you know, she survived the winter with her zombie backpack carriers. Pretty much she removed the jaw and the arm and used them as kind of pack mules. Super ingenious move. You know, she doesn't have a car, where the other group entirely has cars. You know, when you're pretty much on foot, it makes sense to kind of turn zombies into pack mules. Smart idea. I mean, I'll be honest. So then they decided to go clear out some more of the prison. They get kind of split up a little bit. And they're going back through trying to find them. Now, I have to say this, go off on a tangent. Seeing them clear out the abandoned prison with the zombies occasionally just, you know, patrolling certain areas made me entirely think, if nobody has made a haunted house using the majority of an old rundown prison with roaming packs of zombies to prevent you from going certain directions or make you have to kind of fight your way through them, somebody needs to. I mean, this had a really great feel to it, using the flashlights to find the way around. I really did like the way that felt. And of course, towards the end, Hershel gets bit. Now, they learned in the past that if you want to help somebody survive, you need to cut off the infection. So towards the end of this episode, yeah, they cut off part of Hershel's leg with a hatchet. And that's when they realized there are other people who are still alive inside this prison. And of course, they talk about the rest of the season. They do mention the governor. So this one does have all the directions saying this is going to be, by far, if they stick to the comic, and if you remember what the governor did in the comics, you will see lots of body parts being removed, and you'll see things happening with a spoon and probably a drill that make Hostel kind of seem like, you know, taking your child to daycare. So, if they go that route, this is going to be probably some of the most intense things we will have seen when it comes to, you know, basic cable TV shows. So again, really good, you know, starting point for Season 3. I hope they do at least 1 to 2 more episodes that have a lot more of the clearing out of the prison. That way then you get a lot more of the zombie killing. You can still do the interpersonal relationships and have them continue to build while you're doing a lot of zombie killing. Because let's be honest, that prison, if it's been roughly a little over a year since the outbreak happened, there should be a lot of zombies in that prison. Okay, when we last left Rick in the game, Herschel had just gotten most of his leg cut off, and the group had just found a group of prisoners. Now, in the comics, they're kind of ambiguous, and then led later on to reveal that they were prisoners. This one, they kind of come flat out and say they are prisoners. They take Herschel back so they can do some sort of medical treatment to the best of their abilities. And then Rick and some of his other, say his hunting party, decide to go out with the prisoners. So they can clear some areas, as well as do some light bartering. We want some in this jail cell. No, if you want some in this prison, I'm going to kill you. You got some food? Yeah. Alright, we'll split the food, or I will kill you. Now, of course, this alliance is very, very short-lived. As one of them gets attacked by a zombie, and then he gets killed. The leader of the prison group tries to toss a zombie on Rick to kill him. Yeah, it doesn't end up being really good for him, as he gets a machete into the skull. So, pretty much the majority of the prisoners, they're down to like 2. Just 2. Yeah, the rest of them either die by zombie or by Rick. They mentioned this really unique thing since Herschel's probably not going to be able to help with the birthing that's going to have to happen sooner or later. Someone else has to learn how to do a C-section. And the best way to do this, of course, is to do turns on a cadaver. Lots of cadavers. Lots of zombies walking around. That's right. We will soon probably get to partake in quite a few different zombie C-sections. I didn't make a mistake there. They actually are going to be performing the C-section operation on the zombies as a training method. Alright, that's fine, that's cool. That works. By the end of the episode, Herschel has not died. Carl makes his way to the infirmary. It's like, Mom, I just killed 2 walkers. So, Mom yells at him because, Herschel lost part of a leg with the group. Carl by himself, because nobody watches Carl. He just kind of runs off and does his own thing. Then, hey, look, I found something that we need. I'm helping move the plot. So a lot of this one was still, the clearing out of the prison. Worked well. And Rick defending his people. All in all, we're starting to do more of the slow plot, but they're definitely setting up a decent amount of plot points for later on. And there was no Michonne this week. It seems like next week they'll probably actually go with more of the helicopter crashing, more with Michonne, and probably actually fully bring in the governor. So before you know it, you'll actually have the 2 independent stories of what's going on with the governor in the town and what's going on with Rick in the city. Well, Rick in the prison. Okay, so another episode of The Walking Dead, one of the best TV shows on television. And this week they entirely skipped talking anything at all about what's going on at the prison, which of course is one of the benefits of them now having the 2 separate groups. So you get to see a lot more of the governor and of the town, the way he runs things. So you're more of kind of like a character profile of just this one man, who of course is going to be an actually major part of this season. So remember that helicopter crashed? It happened in the distance and nobody quite knew what was going on. They actually get to see what actually happened with that. As well as the miraculous return of Merle. Merle now kind of has a metal fist now, a la Age of Apocalypse Wolverine that he occasionally attaches a bayonet to. So of course Merle is one of the, well, I guess he'd be the hammer in the toolbox for the governor. So Michonne and the woman that she was with end up going to the governor's house, and they're taken care of. And the whole time Michonne's like, yeah, I do not want to be here. Something just seems kind of off. And it is a fully fortified town. They got walls up, they've got schools, they've got food. It kind of seems like everything they had at the farm, just with more walls and more guns. And the governor has this very gregarious way about him, in the way that he talks about, it's about community, and this is how we're going to survive and take society back, civilization back. By not being at each other's throats the whole time, we're actually going to thrive together. So he got these really great speeches. And then the surviving pilot, he asked him, okay, so where are all those men at? Were there more people? What do they have there? And then he goes there with the white flag. And then he comes back with not more people, but with more supplies. Then goes through another impassioned speech about, how they have material that we need. They had guns. They were trained military personnel. But they didn't have the community. They didn't have the walls that we have. They didn't have the structure that we have. So it's kind of one of those, they had something kind of like what we had, but they had it out there. And here we take care of each other. Our community is what makes us stronger than the people on the outside. So he does make very much an us versus them sort of scenario for it. And then, of course, it ends with one of the iconic scenes in the comic. Essentially, it's the governor's secret room full of fish tanks that do not have fish in them. So, absolutely, a really fantastic character profile of the governor himself. Like I mentioned before, this season will probably go back and forth, because with the groups being split, you can get a lot more mileage out of what's going on with each individual group, as opposed to just trying to focus on two at the exact same time. So this was a really solid Carl-less episode of The Walking Dead. Wow, this episode of The Walking Dead had a really great roller coaster-like feel to it. It began with the prison group, and they're trying to clear out some of the bodies. And they're like, man, have you guys seen Glenn and Maggie somewhere? There's sorry, I got a throat issue. And they're like, I think they're up in the guard shack, in the guard tower. Man, they were there last night. I hear, hey Glenn, you coming? Bugs that up. What? Glenn, I said, you coming? So, nice kind of bright, humorous little joke there. Herschel is up on his one leg with two crutches. Carl asks if he wants to do a foot race. So it has this nice, light feel to it. Go back and forth a little bit to the town with the governor. The scene with the governor and Michonne Michonne's like, bullet holes in some of these vehicles. Yeah, they must have ran to bandits. Mm-hmm. Bandits. Okay. Blondie's still giving information to Merle, so you can tell Merle wants to try to go, find his brother. Then all of a sudden, back at the prison, there's like an inmate outbreak. Now, of course, most of the inmates now are zombies. So a good portion of this episode is spent people trying to survive the zombies and constantly being fractured into smaller groups. T gets bitten, and then kind of like the heroic death to try to save Carol. And while that's going on, you've got Rick, Glenn, Maggie, Norman Reedus, I forget his character's name, sorry, and the two surviving inmates are trying to find out why all the alarms are going off, which is just drawing all the zombies to the area. They find out there's somebody else who was still inside the prison. They have to deal with that person. While this is going on, Laurie gives birth. Now, as she's trying to give birth, it's her, Carl, and Maggie. She's kind of like, she didn't give birth normally. Like, for Carl, it was a C-section. So the people who know how to do it are nowhere near her. She's trying to give birth the regular way. It says not working. So then Maggie has to take Carl's knife and perform a C-section to try to pull the baby out. Now, if you're doing a C-section kind of in the middle of a rundown prison without having any anesthetic or anything to prevent massive blood loss, and you're using essentially a pocket knife, yeah, they pretty much cut her open, pull the baby out, and she dies. And then Maggie's like, she's gonna turn, I can't do it. Carl, you have to. So Carl plays, like super grown man, and he blows his mom's brains out. Happens off screen, but that's, he knows if you want to kill the walker, you gotta splatter the gray matter, and he does. And then as Rick's trying to figure out, all right, okay, so T's dead. We know that because his body's all mangled. We didn't find Carol. What? Has anybody seen Carl, Maggie, and Laurie? Then you get the baby crying. Ironically, the baby now is a lot cleaner. When the first pulled the baby out, it's just covered in blood. Then a couple of scenes later, the baby is almost entirely clean. The only continuity that I really care about is if you see something that's really bloody and it's not all of a sudden. And as they're walking, that's then when Rick gets to have a mini breakdown. So you have Carl with this just dead stare on his face, tears coming down, and Rick just flat out losing it. This was a amazing episode. Like I said, it was nice, light, airy, and fun in the beginning. Then they're like, oh man, more walkers. We could never have just a regular day. And then it goes from this is kind of fun and happy to yeah, so here's your brother or sister. Your mom died in the process and you had to shoot her so she wouldn't become the undead. Alright. That's pretty deep. Okay, well, some football game went to overtime, so it ruined half of my Simpsons. Thank you, whoever was playing on Fox. But on to AMC's The Walking Dead. Now, last week, a lot of stuff happened with the birth of Laurie and Rick's kid, and then Carl had to bust a cap in Laurie's head. Because she, of course, was becoming a zombie after the C-section by Maggie, performed with a survival knife. So let's just say Rick is perturbed at this point for the fact that he actually just grabs one of the emergency axes and decides to pretty much go ballistic, walking through the halls of the prison and splitting every skull that comes into his path. So he really has no dialogue. Except when the phone rings at the very end, he picks it up. Beyond that, this is more or less just Rick kind of being a step away from being Jack Nicholson in The Shining. Well, that's going on. Maggie and Norman Reedus' character go out to do a supply run because the food they have won't really work for a baby. They gotta get formula, diapers, bottles, and all those sorts of supplies. They find it at a daycare. Luckily, there were no zombie babies in the daycare, just a possum. Which I'm assuming, from the way they said, it's going to make good eating. So that's the majority of what's going on at the prison side. At the town, Michonne is still not quite convinced what's going on with the governor in the town. The governor is shown brushing the hair of his daughter. His daughter, of course, is a walker. So last week you saw that he had the aquariums full of zombie heads, and now you find he is a walker daughter. But Michonne said that something's just not quite right while the town's having a party. She goes, gets her sword, and then finds a spot where there's a bunch of walkers. So she releases some aggression and butchers a bunch of the walkers. So then Merle and company have to go out and get more. You're probably thinking, why does this town need walkers? Well, guess what? What they do every now and then is they have this giant party. And what they essentially do is they have two guys beat each other up. The governor says it's rigged and it's fixed. But as opposed to being an octagon, they essentially have a bunch of walkers on chains. So Merle mercilessly beats the crap out of some poor guy, while zombies, after every round, get closer and closer. So Andrew still wants to stick around, kind of perturbed by the fight scene that's going on. Michonne is gone. You know, for this season so far, obvious breakout characters, Michonne and the governor, are just ridiculous. Something about just her attitude of being, yeah, something's not right here. And everything points to her being correct, and Andrew kind of going, what do you mean we got, like, good food, there's water, there's a place to stay. I kind of like it here. And then the governor and his whole, he's just a whack job. If you've read the books, you know that he is even a bigger whack job than what they've currently shown. Okay, so another episode of the best TV show going on currently, AMC's The Walking Dead. This episode, very, very little in the way of zombies. And I do mean very, very little in the way of zombies. Where we left off, Michonne had left the town, and Merle goes out with a small posse to try to find her. She does one of the most interesting things. They call it the bitergram. She puts the word "go" in zombie parts, and then puts the back, like the back of a zombie. So someone goes, the message is "go back." See, there's the G, there's the O, and there's the back of a zombie. They decide to not go back. And then Michonne more or less guts two of them really fast. Now it's down to Merle and the red shirt who's with him hunting down Michonne. They're not very successful in doing it. However, Merle does run into some people who are doing a supply run, Maggie and Glenn. And he takes them both hostage to bring back to the town. While that's going on, Rick is constantly getting a phone call. It appears this phone call is all in his head and he's going crazy. At this time, Daryl is helping to clear out some of their cell blocks, and then he finds Carol's knife. You know, believing that Carol's dead, and he thinks he knows where she's at. So he's got that look of, I'm going to have to open this door and I'm going to kill her with her own knife. Opens the door. She doesn't look, she can tell she's been there for a couple of days, but she's not dead. So you've got Rick kind of going crazy on the phone. You've got Glenn and Maggie being picked up by Merle. You've got the governor laying down the law. And that's at the very, very end. Rick looks out. Something seems weird at the fence. And there's Michonne with all the baby supplies. So it seems like the fact that these two sides are going to just clash is getting closer and closer. So again, very little in the way of zombies. They've had a lot of zombies so far. So very little in the way of zombies, a lot more of the mental and emotional strategy trying to go through this. As well as what they kind of said, where you really do need to fear the living. So I like the direction that's going. You can't always have it be just wall-to-wall zombie killing, as much as that would be really awesome. But knowing that these two sides are going to clash, and knowing that in the comics, things don't end up very well for Rick when both sides actually finally do collide into each other. Okay, so we have one more episode to go before we hit the mid-season break in The Walking Dead. Where we left off, Michonne had just made it to the prison. At the same time, Maggie and Glenn had just been kidnapped by the governor and his group. So this episode, Merle does a lot of interrogation of Glenn. And Glenn gets his moment of massive being Baracus this time. Because after Merle pretty much pounds on him relentlessly, he then decides to let a walker in the room. So Glenn, while duct taped to a chair, breaks himself free from the chair and uses the parts of the chair to kill the walker. Governor's talking to Merle. Did you find anything from the boy? No. You talk to the girl? I was about to. I'll go talk to her. So the governor goes to talk to Maggie. And his style of interrogation is not really physical as it is psychological, hinging more towards a sexual sort of torture. More or less makes her take off her top. And while this is going on, Rick and his group decide to let Michonne in, trying to find out what's going on, why she's there. She tells them about the city, the town. So they make a small strike force to go hit the town. And while that's going on, the science officer of the town believes that part of the subconscious and the unconscious mind is retained by the zombie. With Andrew kind of going, "Oh, no, that is not what happens at all. No, you're wasting your time here. He's gonna change and that's gonna be it." Lo and behold, he changes, and it's like, oh, he can't answer these questions because he's tied down. Let loose some of the straps, and then you have to kill him. So we end with the governor kind of being like, well, okay, this group cleared out the prison just up the road from us. We did not think that was going to be possible. They're a small group. And ironically, when they said it's a group of 10, a few of them really aren't really physically able to clear out a lot of the zombies. So now the governor is absolutely frightened to death that there's a small group of people who have been battle hardened for over the past year now, while he's got his little militia force and the rest of his townspeople have gotten used to the new norm and are nowhere near as tough as Rick's group. So we end with the governor trying to figure out what's going on, and Rick and his small group just on the outside of the town. So of course, next episode, which will be the last one of the season, or until the mid-season break, it does appear that we're going to see human versus humans. This one very light on zombies. We only had one real altercation section beyond letting Michonne in the prison. So now we're going to go back to good old-fashioned. During the end of the world, humans still have an issue when it comes to trying to get along. Okay, so this is the last episode of The Walking Dead until February, unless you count the all-night and all-day marathon New Year's Eve to New Year's Day of The Walking Dead. So when we left off, Rick and company were going to essentially storm the town to help get Glenn and Maggie. So, how's this one open? It opens with another group of people, trying to run their way through and actually make it to the prison. So, you actually had three groups being discussed. You had the new group made to the prison, the current group still in the prison, and you also had the people of the town. So Rick's group, under cover of night, fairly easily make it into the town. And they do actually end up finding Maggie and Glenn. After Glenn has another moment of, this is how wicked I have become. He tears the arm off the zombie that was thrown in there with him to kill him, and then more or less breaks the forearm and breaks part of the arm so he can have stabbing implements. Yes, he breaks the shoulder, pulls the arm out, breaks the arm, and then also breaks it in the forearm to give them stabbing weapons made out of the bones of a zombie. Wicked. Rick and company find them pretty easily, and they actually make it out of the town. While they're doing this, everyone's like, where did Michonne go? Michonne finds her way into the governor's secret room with all the heads in the aquariums, as well as his daughter. These two finally have their battle. And the only thing that actually stops Michonne from killing the governor is the fact that Amanda shows up. But the governor now is blind in one eye and no longer has a daughter. Ironically, when he did this in the comic, Rick does get captured and gets his hand cut off. And they show there's an awful lot of a direct, brutal, violent assault on Michonne by the governor. And then when Michonne comes back, she then pretty much does a number on the governor. Part of which involves using a spoon in a very tender location. So this is a knockdown, drag-out fight where she takes part of one of the fish tanks and jabs into his eye, therefore leaving him blind. Daryl stays behind for a cover fire so everyone else can flee. So the governor is now doing a speech about terrorists and how these people came in to try and take what was theirs, and they had a traitor. He says the traitor is Merle. So we end with Merle and Daryl more or less kind of being thrown up as a sacrificial lambs to help cover the fact that the governor actually had two people held hostage that he was beaten into submission to try to find out where their camp is located. And of course they do give a little bit of what's going to happen next when they come back in February, where it seems like the town's going to go to war with the prison, which would be pretty interesting. Again, you had lots of zombies in the beginning, and it kind of slowed down somewhat. So again, this season was a lot more, actually a lot more came to the human drama of it, but still undeniably gripping. So see you in February.